Okay. Well, by the way, what's the spelling for instantiate? Yeah, that's uh, instantiate, right? So in order to call this method, we just have to create the object of add, right? So that's instantiation. So we have to say add obj equal to new add. Technically, this stuff here, which is new add, this is called as an object, right? So this is the actual instance, and this obj here is a reference. So everything, so every time you have a type with something, so this will be called as variable, right? In this case, this is called as reference variable. So this stuff here, this is an object, okay, and this is a reference variable. Sounds good? So with the help of this reference variable, what we can do is we can say obj dot add. But when you want to add two numbers, we have to pass two values, right? So because in this add, we are accepting those values, and mind you, this is just a default. So let's see if we can just if we can access that method here. So we have to pass two values. Let's say if I'm passing 7 and let me pass 9. So if I pass these two values, it will return something, right? Since we are writing int here, so of course it will return something. So we have to store that something somewhere. So let's say it is int result. So inside this result, we are storing that value. So when you say obj.add, by passing two values 7 and 9, it will return you 16, right? So that 16 will goes into result. So what we can do is we can simply print the value of result. So we can say system.out.println in bracket if you mention result, and if you just run this code, so let's say run as Java application, you got the answer as 16. So what exactly is happening here is you are instantiating this object, which is, in fact, you are instantiating this class which is add by using this new keyword. So whenever you say new add, it is actually using the constructor concept for initializing the object. So whenever you say what is the use of constructor, so basically it will initialize your object, and that object got a reference as obj. So next time whenever you want to access this particular object, you just have to use obj as the reference. Okay, now so we can simply say obj.add by passing two values 7 and 9, and that result is getting stored inside this result variable, and we are just printing that value here, right? So everything there with me? Okay, great. So what next now? Let's say I got a client requirement now. So client says, okay, everything is going good. I got the object of add using which I can add two numbers. But let's say if client says, okay, I want to add three numbers now. I don't want two numbers, I want three numbers. So can I add three numbers with the help of add method here? I mean, can we add three values with the help of add method? Is it possible? Okay, you're saying yes or no. I mean, I'm not getting any answer. Can we add three values using this method here? Okay, no answer. Let me just answer this question. There is one way you can add three values. So let's say I have three values 7, 9 and 8. Okay, I want to add these three values. So what we can simply do is we can say 7, 9 plus obj.add, not this one, but we can say 7, obj.add by passing 8 and 9. You know what is happening here? So first, in fact, we are passing these two values, right? So we are calling obj.add by passing two values. This will give you 17, right? And then we are adding that value 17 plus 7. Makes sense, everyone? So you've got 24. So we can do that also, right? So just imagine you are asking to your client. So this is your main function will always remains a client, and this is a provider, right? So we want to add two numbers. So we are asking this class to add two numbers. So this main act as a client, right? So adding your client is doing that stuff for you. But let's say client says, okay, I don't want to do this stuff. I just want to pass three values. Do you have a solution for that? But so as a programmer, you have to provide this kind of solutions to your provider or to your client, right? So you can see there is no method as such as add method which takes three parameters. So what we can do is we can create one more method here, which is int add. This time we'll not go for two variables, we go for three variables, which is int I, comma j, comma int k, right? The advantage would be we can simply say return I plus j plus k. So we can now add three values. So if you can observe, we have two methods. So you can see we have two methods with the same name, right, but different parameters. So we have the same name but different parameters. So this is called this concept is called as overloading, right? So we have two methods with different parameters, so this is called as overloading. So specifically it is called as method overloading. Okay. Okay, so now what next? But I guess Ganesh PC, oh yeah, okay. So what next now? So what next? Actually, what next? Can we have three methods with the same name but different parameters? Of course we can, right? Provided you have different number of parameters, different types of parameters. We can also add three float values. Let's say I want to add three values, but the first one would be float. So the example, if I say 7.7f 8, 9. Now in this scenario, the first value is not int, right? It is a float. Since we write f at the end, this is not int, that's float, right? So when you try this, now what will happen? The thing is, we are passing three values of different types. So number of parameters is still 3, and we have a method which takes three parameters. Then what's the issue? So it's not just the number of parameters, it's also the type of parameters. So we have to say add, int add, and we have to also remember the sequence. The first one is float, okay, we can have any name, doesn't matter. The second one we can have j, and then we can have k, right? So we can have one float and two integers. Since we are on the client side, we are doing that, right? We are passing one float and two integers, and in this scenario we can just simply return f plus I plus k. Simple, right? But there is a catch. And what's that? No, it's not I, it should be j, right? And there is a problem here. Any guesses what this problem could be? Okay, so connection lost. What about others? Are you facing any issue there? Okay, great. So are you facing any issue, anyone? Okay, great. So how much you lost? I don't know. Is it still lagging? Okay, I think it should be perfect now. Okay, great. So what we did is, since we are passing three values, one is float and the second one is int and int. So again, if you are facing any lags here, let me know on WhatsApp, because anyway, since you are facing lag, I will not be getting your messages on TeamViewer, right? So make sure that you send the message on WhatsApp. Yeah. So since we are passing three values, one is float and other two are int, right? So Here also we have to make sure that we take one float and two integers. But there's a problem here. Any guess what's the problem? I'm adding three values, but it's not working. Okay, let me just guess what issue can be. Exactly right, because we cannot write int add because we are adding a float with an integer and an integer. So when you add these three types, of course the output would be float, right? So this here should be float because we are returning a float value now. Okay, makes sense, right? And from here we can just pass three values, but unfortunately now we cannot accept int value because we are doing a float there. Now what we can do? So there's one choice. We can actually take float. Doesn't matter which method you call, right? Even if you are calling the integer method, which is 789. So this will call the second method, right? We are returning int, but you can have integer value inside float. That's much possible, right? So that's one way you can do it. The other way is we can keep it int. Okay. Before returning, we can actually convert that float value into int. So even if you are adding float value, we can actually return the integer of it. Okay. Everyone? Okay, so let me just run this code now, and you can see we got the output as 24. So even if you are passing, so let's pass 7.7f now, and let's run this. So you're getting again 24 because as soon as you return by casting into integer, you will lose that 0.7. Okay, because we are casting it. That's right. Okay, so I'm recording this session. I will be uploading this on YouTube. So if you want to revise this session once again, you can just actually go to YouTube and watch this video. Okay, everyone. And you have to do one more thing. When you watch that video on YouTube, you have to also like it. So there's a thumbs up button there. You just have to like that button there. Okay. Not get decimal point. Oh, but yeah, we'll not get decimal point. You can see that we are getting 24. But let's say you want decimal value, what to do, right? So any guesses what we can do? Yeah, I will give you this thing in pen drive, but you have to also make sure that you like this on YouTube. Okay, so let's return float. Okay, and but there's a problem here. So again, this end we can just make it float, right? So that will be the win-win situation for both the side. And if we run this code now, you will be actually getting the value. Oh, but hold on. I guess we lost something because we are casting it with int. By now, you will be getting 24.7. Make sense? Okay. So let's say, now this is something which you have, so you have a client who says like I want, if you don't, okay, so we have a question if you don't want to put any float value. I mean inside this add, right, Sarang? I mean if I remove that point value, what will happen? It will work because if you're adding all integer values, it will return you int, and float is ready to accept integer values. So that is implicit conversions. So whenever you cast, you go for explicit conversion. So writing int in brackets, that is explicit conversion. So whenever you go from float to int, it will be explicit, and from int to float, it will be implicit. Okay, yeah, it will be giving you the value as 24.4 in this scenario, 24.0 because we are accepting a float value, right? So it will add extra 0 at the end. No, at the receiving end, since we are passing 7, it will not call the float method, it will call the int method here. So this int will take only 7, not 7.0, Ravi. Okay. Okay, so now let's imagine you have a new client now, and client says, okay, everything is going good, your add is working perfectly, everything is working perfectly, but the issue is we got a new requirement and we don't have the source code now. So the new requirement is they need one more method which can actually add double. Okay, so since we cannot make changes in this add is because we don't have the source code of this. We just have a class file. Okay, we don't have the source code. So what we can do is, let's imagine we don't have the source code, we just have a class file. So what we can actually do is we can create a new file and we'll name this file as add extra because it provides some extra features. So what extra feature it has a method, okay, which is one more method which returns you the double value. Let's make it float. A float will do. It will take the method name will be add, and it adds all the float characters. So let's say this float f, the float g1, and then float k. Is it after? It's f h. What's after g? F g h. Yeah, h, right. And let's return. So let's return f plus g plus h. Okay, so we are calling this method which is add by passing. Okay, that's extra, right? So now we got a new method which adds 3 float values, right? So in this calc, should I create object of add or should I create object of add extra? Of course, we want to access the third method, right? The method which takes 3 parameters, which is float. But unfortunately, if you're creating object of add extra, you can add all the integer values, right? Of course, because even if you pass integer values, it will accept here because float actually accept integer values. But let's say I want to call this float itself. Okay, I want to call what? I want to call methods of add also. So in order to access those add method in this add extra, we can use the concept of inheritance. What is inheritance? Using the existing properties, right? So we can simply say extends add. So now in this add extra, we got 3 methods. The first one is add which takes 3 integer values. The second one is add which takes 1 float and 2 integers, and then we got the third method which takes in fact in add we have we have 3 methods, right? So in total we are getting 4 methods in add extra, 3 coming from add and 1 is here, right? So this concept is called as inheritance because we are inheriting. Again the audio is lagging. Okay, let me know if when it comes back. So everything, so I'm audible now, guys? Okay, great. So now what we can, maybe the problem is from your side. Yes, add has 3 methods, one which takes 2 integers, one which takes 3 integer values, and one which takes 1 float and 2 integer values. And add extra has 1 method here. So in total in add extra we have 4 methods, 3 coming from add and 1 from add extra, right? So if you can create the object of add extra, we can use all 3 methods. Makes sense, right? So that's the concept of what? Method overloading, and we are also using inheritance here. So let me add one more twist. Let's say I'm not passing 3 values, I'm just passing 2 values. If I add these 2 values, which is 7 and 8, which method it will execute? Of course, from add, right? So in add we have method with 2 parameters, so it will execute this method, right? So the logic here is we are adding 2 values, which is int and int, so it will return you the value which is, so let's say if you pass 7 and 8, it will return you 15, right? Let's say my client says, okay, I want to add 2 numbers, but I don't want to return the actual addition. I want to return the addition with extra value. So let's say the addition is 15. I want to add 1 extra. So that means if user says 7 and 8, the addition is 15, so the output should be 16. So since we want to change the existing behavior, see what happens is, we have the object of add extra, right, which is this class here. Let me just provide the division. Okay. So if you can see here, we have add extra, in which you have only one method which takes 3 parameters, right? And then we have this method here which takes 3 methods in which you have 2 parameters, right? So this object obj is the object of add extra, right, which is here. So now when you call, I think this should be on this side, right? That will make more sense, I guess. Right? So here, so this add extra has only one method. So now when you call add, which takes 2 parameters, so in add extra we don't have any method which takes 2 parameters, right? So it will go to this one, but this will give you the actual addition of 2 numbers. If you pass 7 and 8, it will give you 15, but the output I want now is 16, right? I want the new logic. So what we can do is we can actually override the concept. So what is overriding here? We can say int add, which will take 2 parameters. So let's say that is int I and j. So it takes 2 parameters and it will return the addition, which is I plus j, but it will also add 1 extra. So it is I plus j plus 1. Now if I run this code, let me just comment this section. Tell me, if I run this, what will be the output? Make it quick. What will be the output if I run this? Anyone? 15, right? Because it will go for normal addition here. But let's say if I uncomment this, what will happen now? Now we have 2 methods which takes 2 parameters. So which one will get the preference? Is it this class which is add, which is also called as superclass, and this add extra will be called as subclass? So will it call the subclass method or superclass method? It will call subclass, right? And if I run this code, we are getting output as 16. It's because we are calling the method of subclass. So this concept of calling or giving the preference to the subclass method is called as overriding. So this is 2 methods with the same name but different parameters is called as overloading. 2 methods with the same name and same parameters but 2 different classes linked by inheritance is called as overriding, right? So this concept of overloading and overriding, which is method overloading and method overriding in combination, it is called as what? So that's a question for you. It is in combination, it is called as what? Anyone? Great. The question is, this concept of overloading and overriding in combination is called as, I mean, what you name this concept? No, this is called as polymorphism. Okay, this combination of these two is called as polymorphism. Okay, so there's a question from Kaustubh. Why it gives preference to the subclass? It's because subclass is something new, right? So it is new. It is the newest implementation, right? So it is a new implementation, and the object you are creating is of subclass. So it will always give preference to itself. Then if you don't have that method in your class, then only it will give preference to your superclass. Let me give an example here. Again, that's my favorite example. So when I was in my 10th standard, when I was in my 10th standard, I was not having a phone, and some of my friends, they were having a phone, right? And when they used to ask me which phone you have, Okay, this is a very typical example. So whenever I teach this concept of polymorphism, I use the same example from last 5 years. Okay, so at that time, when people used to ask me which phone I have, I was not having a phone, so of course I used to get embarrassed, right? I don't have a phone. They were having a good phone, you know. At that time, there was a very awesome phone, which is the first smartphone, Nokia 6600. If you remember the oval shaped phone, so everyone, lots of people, they were having that phone. It was the year 2005. If I'm not wrong. Yeah, actually, I have an iPhone now. But at that time, I was not having a phone, right? So people used to ask me which phone you have. So I used to say I don't have a phone. But after some time, I used to think why to give this answer that I don't have a phone. So my father had a phone, right? So he had a phone which is Nokia. I guess it was double three. Which phone he had? I guess it was double three. I forgot the number. It was somewhat 3320. It was the color phone, not the smartphone. It was a color phone. So, so when people used to ask me which phone I have, so I used to say I have 3310, right? So it was not my phone. It was my father's phone. So when you don't have a phone, your father's phone becomes your phone. That's inheritance, right? Everyone. So when you don't have a phone, your father's phone becomes your phone. So when you want to call someone, you will use your father's phone, right? But let's say, in fact, after 2 years, in my 12th standard, I got a new phone. I got a Motorola C168. It was not C168, it was C18. So once I got a phone, and now people used to ask me question, which phone I have. So which phone I would refer? Is it Nokia 3310 or Motorola C18? Of course, Motorola, right? That is overriding. So my phone overrides my father's phone, right? So that's why it will always give preference to the subclass, not the superclass. Make sense now? Okay, but let's say if I lost my phone, I'm traveling in train and then I lost my phone. What will be my new phone now? So which phone I have now? Again, I will have to go back to the superclass method, which is Nokia 3310, right? So that is what happening here. If I comment this, since I don't have a method, so if I run this code now, it will call the superclass method. Okay. Okay. Why is that error there? Okay. Let me just remove this comment also. Yeah, seems perfect. Right. So any questions here, guys? Okay, so I guess there's no question. Let me just continue with the topic. So, yeah, Sarang, this concept. Okay, this is very famous concept. So let's say you're using some, maybe you're doing something where it could be used. I guess we just have to pause that question. We'll try to answer that later once we start using some APIs. So instead of answering that question now, let's answer that question when we actually go for this concept in real life. Okay, there are lots of topics coming on the way which will clear your concepts. Don't worry. But just remember, let me give an example. So let's say you are using an API. So somebody has built a class and they are providing some features. So let's say you are using someone's class and you're extending a class which is created by someone, and that someone gives you 5 methods. Okay, so you can use 5 methods of that class. But you think what you're thinking now is, out of those 5 methods, 4 methods is good for me, but the one method is giving me some problems. So I want to use those 4 methods, but not the not the fifth method. So what you can do is you can actually override that fifth method. So you can have your own implementation of that fifth method. Now there's one more example. When you buy an Android phone, you can actually use launchers, right? For different UI. So you're actually overriding the existing UI. Make sense? And if you remove the new UI, if you remove the launcher, you will be getting the old launcher. Yeah, exactly. OS version also. That's a good example for that. Okay, so that's method overloading and overriding, right? So let me just make one more twist here. Okay, let me just give me a sec. Okay, let me just make one more change here. So what if I shift this add extra in another package? Okay, let me do something. Let me just move this to another package. How to move this? So let me just create. We can actually use. Okay, let me just create let me create one more package here, and that's how we create a package. We'll name this package as com.extra because this is the package will be having all the extra files, and let me move this to extra package. Okay, and you can see the impact. So this method, this class which is add extra, goes to extra package now, and we got an error. And the error is we are not able to access this method add. Why we are not able to access it? Any guess? It's because we have a default access. As soon as you shift your package, you cannot use the default methods, right? So that's why you have to make this as public. And as soon as you make it public, it goes off, right? So that makes sense. Okay, so that makes sense. But let's say if I don't have this method, if I comment this section, now what? Even now I cannot access that because this time we are not accessing this method, I'm accessing this method, so this should be public. So I just have to make this public, so now it will work. So now my question to everyone, if I'm making this method as public, okay, can I come here, and if I'm making it public, it will work, of course. What happens if I make this as private? Will it work? Oh, again, Eclipse is giving you the answer. This will not work. Okay, you cannot. So if you can see the text there. Okay, let me repeat my statement. Or even if I remove this, there will be an issue. This is your superclass method is public and your subclass method is not public. Okay, it is private, and it is not even private. This is default, right? And you can see there's an error here. The error is because if I go to this line now, it says cannot reduce the visibility of inherited method. That means you can expand the visibility, but you cannot narrow the visibility. So this is a very important point to remember. Whenever you go for overriding, you cannot reduce the visibility. You can only increase the visibility. Okay. So again, we have to make it public. So that's why it is always better to have all your methods as public. And yes, public classes can be accessed from any package. And that's why for every class, it is recommended that you create a new file. So if you're creating a class add extra, create a new file. Okay. So public class can be accessed in any class. Okay, there's a question from Sarang. Public class can be accessed by any class. Why new file? Okay, new file is because you can have. So if you are creating a public class, I mean, if you are creating one more class, that class cannot be public, right? Example, if I create one more class here, let's name this class as B. Can we make this class as public? No, right? Because if you make this public, there will be an error. In one file, you can have only one public class, and that's why you have to create new file. So make sure you have your files in new. If you have your classes in new file. Yes, one file can have at most one public file, one public class. Make sense, everyone? Okay. Now there's one more concept of abstract classes. What exactly abstract classes are? So if you have, so let's say this add, we are providing the implementation, right? So let's say I don't want to provide the implementation. We can actually declare methods. Okay. If you don't want to provide the implementation, you can declare methods, right? And whenever you declare methods, so this concept is also coming from C++ and in fact C. So whenever you use methods in C, we have to go in three steps, right? First we have to declare the method. I mean function. You have to first declare the function, then we have to define the function, and then we have to call it. If you remember, first declare it, define it, and call it. Right? So that is what happens in C programming. We can achieve the same concept in Java by writing abstract methods. So we are declaring it here. So we are making public int abstract. It should be public abstract int. So the first should be modifiers, then it should be return type. Okay, so you have to remember that thing. So we are declaring this stuff here, which is public. So we're declaring this method, which is public abstract. Okay, whenever you declare a method, which is semicolon here, you just have to make it abstract. The thing is, if you have an abstract method in a class, that class forcefully becomes abstract class. So you can have abstract methods only in abstract class. Now question is, can we create object of abstract class? So let's say if I try to create object of add here, you can see there will be an error which says there's an error, right? You cannot create object of abstract class, right? So we cannot do that. But you can actually extend a abstract class here. You can see we are extending an abstract class, and in this class you have to provide the implementation, right? So this is abstract here, and this is the implementation. If you fail, right, if you fail to define it, there will be an error which says the type add extra must implement the inherited abstract method, because if you fail, then unfortunately you cannot access it. I mean you cannot make this class. So this class also becomes abstract. So if you are failing to define the methods, this also becomes abstract. And again, then you cannot create object of abstract class. You can see the error here. You cannot instantiate the type add extra because that's an abstract. But I don't want to do that. I just want to make it public, non-abstract. So we can define it. So whenever you have a class which extends an abstract class, which provides the implementation, so this kind of classes are actually called as concrete class. Okay, so a class which extends an abstract class and it also provides the implementation will be called as concrete class. So I guess everything makes sense now? Yes? Okay, perfect. So let me just go for one more concept here. Okay, so let's say in this abstract class we don't have any extra methods, we just have one abstract method here. So you can see we had just one abstract method, and your class here extends one abstract class, right? But let's say we have one more abstract class for a change. Okay, let me just create one more abstract class, and this class is, let's say, something AAA. It doesn't matter what's the class name. And just for the simplicity of this code, let me just move this class to this package so that everything will be in one particular package. so that I can access this class. And let's say this is also, let's say this is normal class, this is not an abstract class here. And this I want to add, so this add extra, we want to extend both the classes. I want to extend add, I want to extend a. Can we do that? Can we say add and a? We cannot do that, right? Because in Java, we cannot have multiple inheritance, right? That's not possible. So what we can do is we can actually use a concept of interfaces. So what if we can simply make this class as interface? Okay, if you just make this class as interface, the advantage would be all the methods in interface are public abstract. Okay, we don't have to write public abstract keyword there. And to work with interfaces, we don't have to write extends. So whenever you use interface, we actually implement. So we have to say implements add, right? And since we are implementing it, so everything will do. Okay. So that's the concept of interface, in which you can only declare the method, you cannot define it. So you cannot declare, you cannot define methods, only declare. This concept is available only till Java 1.7. As soon as you go in 1.8, we have some different concepts. So again, in the weekend, we'll be having a session, right? So on Saturday, we have a session where we'll be starting the session with how can you define methods in Java 8. Okay, so you can just create out that question there, right, people? Okay, so that's an interface for you. We can have abstract, we can have an interface with one method, we can have multiple methods, no issue. But there's one more thing, we can actually create the reference of interface and object of a class. Okay, even that will do. This class is not doing anything, this is just for the example, right? Let me remove this stuff. So we can actually create a reference of interface. We cannot create the object of interface, we can only create the reference of interface, and we can create the object of a class. I hope that makes sense. Okay, but there's one drawback here. We cannot call the add method of add extra by passing 3 parameters. That's not possible. Why it's not possible? Why we cannot call this? Anyone? Why we cannot call this? Yeah, because it's a reference of interface, and interface don't know about a method which takes 3 parameters, right? So you cannot access that. So exactly. So that's the revision session we had. So this is what we have discussed in in 2 days, right? So in fact, Saturday and Sunday, and we have covered everything in 1 hour. That's why I love online sessions. We can cover things very quickly. Again, since we know lots of sessions, right? Yeah, that's good, right? So what about others? Do you like online sessions? Yes, we can. I mean, we can call this. It will work. Since we are calling, see, this add is interface, right? And we are saying obj. So obj.add, it works. If I run this code, it actually works. See this, the output is 16. This out. So yeah, so time for feedback. So how was the session? I mean, you're getting the points online? Provided if you ignore that audio lagging and video lagging, everything is perfect, right? Yeah, sure. I will be uploading this video on YouTube now itself. I mean, now, in fact, in half an hour, you can just watch it there also. You can also. I will share this in pen drive on Saturday with you people. Okay then, that's it. We'll see you on Saturday. We are remaining with an assignment, right? Let me give an assignment questions for which we have to which you have to submit on Saturday, right? So let me just open my WordPad. Okay, so the assignment would be you have to create. So first assignment, create a calculator, okay, with 4 basic operation. Second question would be you have to do the same stuff, but uh, using using the implementation, using inheritance concept, because you have to create in fact you have to create 4 classes, one for addition. The second class can only add and subtract. The third class can add, subtract and multiply. The fourth class should be able to do all this stuff. Okay, so you have to create 4 different classes. Okay. Yes, each class contains only one method. So let's say the first class is add. Okay, and that will be having add. The second method will be add sub. So add sub will extend add, right? So again you'll be getting that method there, which is the add. So in the third class, which extends second class, and so on. So this is the assignment you have to complete till Saturday. Okay, since we have not completed for loop, if conditions, all those stuff, I cannot give you more assignments because much of the assignments covered using operators, right? So next week you'll be getting lots of assignments. So that's it. That's it from this session. See you on Saturday. Since we have, so let me repeat my last line, Ravi. Since we have not covered if else, for loop, we'll be doing those stuff on Saturday so that I can give you more assignments next week. That's the surprise cost. Topics are always in surprise, right? Anyway, I'm shutting it down. If you have any questions, you can just use WhatsApp.